Okay, this is a wiring schematic from Meridyne high performance fan for my basic Champion series electric fan. It's good to have this, but the thing to note for early Fords is you will not get 9 volts off of the ignition switch because it's resisted down to the coil. So what I'm going to do is essentially wire a direct line from the battery via the starter relay post positive and run it to the inside the car and put a switch in so I can get 12 volts. And basically what I'll do is come in here, I'll put a fuse here next to the battery, run my switch inside the car, probably next to the ignition switch somewhere, and then run it to a fuse panel, probably a 4-gang fuse panel, so I can get 12 volts here, put a 5 amp fuse here which runs to the relay. And I can also use this fuse panel for choke, because you don't want to run your choke cable again off the positive coil side because you're only getting 9 volts, so your electric choke isn't going to work. And I also have the option of running a tack if need be, or anything else. But big issue is getting 12 volts to the relay and getting 12 volts to your electric choke. And I will probably put a 20 amp inline fuse right next to the positive side terminal on the relay. So this is what I'm going to have to do, and so I'll have to go to the store and get some wiring, and I'm going to use 12 gauge wire throughout, and just get some simple fuses and get something similar to an old original Ford cover of some kind, and if anything I'll paint it black and make a label for it. But it's all in the details, man. You gotta make it look good. Okay, here's my roughed in assembly with the thermostat bracket cut, rebent, rerun the wires, and then use some silly putty to locate where the stem's going to come through on the outside of the cover, so I know I can stamp it, drill it, and then put the knob on. Another good use to have silly putty. Alright, here's my proposed plan for the fan relay. This is the relay, and this is the inline fuse that'll go to the positive side of the starter solenoid. This is a 30 amp fuse inside here. And I know this is a mess right now. I'll break this out into a big picture here soon. So this will go to the positive side of the starter solenoid, and I'm also going to keep this tucked inside the box. All this other stuff has to go out, blue line, fan, ground. Alright, so I picked up some 12 gauge wire, fabricated a tin to hold the 20 amp fuse. That's going to be right below the positive side of the starter solenoid. Paint. I'll screw this to the side of the inner fender well. Picked up some various bayonet style fuses. Picked up an aftermarket Dorman style push-pull switch. It'll look more prototypical. I'll have to figure out some kind of bracket for it, something like this, but a little bigger. And I'll put a note on it for electric fan and choke, but that'll go under the dash next to the gauges. I'll use a fuse box like this, which will fit nicely under a box like this. It's dimensionally just perfect, so I just need to find another one of these lids or something similar, and I'll make it look good, but this should work fine. This is a variation of that same idea. This is a lot bigger than I'd wanted, but I've grabbed it anyways. $3. Again, more fuses for 10 amp for the choke, a couple others for maybe for a stereo later, and the 5 amp is for the switched power for the electric fan, some connectors, and waterproof connector for the positive side terminal of the starter relay, and some heat shrink, because that's going to be important. And then later I'll do the whole loom once I get it all dialed in with a some cable wrapping. Okay, got a slight change with this fuse holder. This is basically all it is, just a fuse holder. It's in line, so with the receptacles left to right, basically it kind of eliminates the whole issue that I wanted to have of one power in, a fuse, and then individual circuits or power sources coming out. So that's not really going to work for me. So I ended up getting one of these, so it'd be hot power here and then hot power out, and then your fuses go here, and you would ground the other side of your piece of equipment that needs a power source. You would ground that. Alright, going over my relay for the electric fan and electric choke. This is the relay and the power, I believe it's a 30 amp power source for the electric fan. This goes to the positive side terminal of the starter relay solenoid. This is your fuse, which is powered to your relay, or gives power to your relay. And then your blue wire will hook up to the positive and grounding wire connector on the electric fan. So you will ground this connector. Part of the harness includes a connector for AC, or also option for running a secondary fan, which I'm not doing. And this connector would be for a pressure switch if you're so equipped for the AC. I do not have that. So it's spliced into this. This is for the temperature sender, which is this. And I've got it inside this box here, and this is my adjustable knob for that. You have to give a signal to the relay, and that comes from your 12 volt ignition power source. Since my ignition's only 9 volt, I'm basically tapping into the positive side of the starter relay and running a wire to a switch inside the car, and then a wire to a fused junction box where I can have my 12 volt, in this case 5 amp fused hot lead. And since the fan will be grounded over here, I don't need to run a ground over here. So that circuit is set, and that's my plan, and I will hide all this ugly wire stuff under that and mount this underneath the starter solenoid relay. And to get power to that guy, I'm going to be adding this 20 amp fuse, which will be mounted inside this box so it looks good. And then I will be obviously running wires to and from, but my whole goal is to get power to this fused junction box. So basically, in a nutshell, that's my idea, and this is the plan for hooking up the Meradyne fan. Okay, we got the electrical hooked up for the positive for the electric choke. I've got it going to my fuse box here. I got to throw a couple fuses in there, in the fuse box there, and this is going to be the switched power lead for the electric fan. So that runs all the way through here, and I've got the fuse relay and the wires for the fan are hidden inside this stock looking box. This box is for the power distribution, which is over here on the firewall, so I can control that with a dedicated 12 volt source. For anything else that I want to add on to later, I just need to hook up this to the positive terminal side here on the starter solenoid, and we're looking good. We're looking really good. I'll hook up the battery, and we should be able to crank this thing over. Alright, down here on the inside, this is my switched source for the power to the distribution, the power distribution block. Try to make it look sort of original to what a 1968 fog light setup would be. It's just a push-pull switch. Just made a quick little label for it, and hopefully that'll work. So, looking good. Alright, next up, to set the thermostat, you have to put the probe in, and it's going to go underneath the water outlet, down under here, go through the radiator, and poke out through the fins. So that's what I'm going to do. And then you secure this end with a little piece of rubber hose. Alright, so hopefully there's the probes. Hopefully that's in focus right here, and just ran wire down here and ran it straight down to my thermostat, which is inside this modified old voltage regulator. So looking good, man. Okay, I've got the electric fan hooked up to the blue wire, which is power, and the black wire is the ground. So fan's now in, which is or connected, which is fastened to the radiator, so it's looking pretty good.